The insane execution of female Auschwitz guard Irma Grese. Nazi concentration camps tell us some horrific stories about the Nazis and how they treated prisoners after the World War. They did every possible torture you'd think is seemingly disgusting and awful. The concentration camp guards tell a different story altogether. One such story of a lady named Irma Grese is our topic today. Let's get straight into this. Female guards were mainly from the lower to middle classes and had no relevant job experience. Their occupations varied. One source included former matrons, hairdressers, tramcar conductors, opera singers, and retired teachers. Volunteers were recruited through advertising in German newspapers, in which women were asked to prove their love for the Reich by joining the SS Gefolge. Furthermore, others were recruited based on information in their SS files. For many ladies, adolescent membership in the League of German Girls was a vehicle of indoctrination. Oberschwärmerin Hertha Haas Breitmann Schmidt, the chief female supervisor, said during one of the post-war investigations that her female guards were not fully fledged SS women. As a result, several tribunals debated whether SS Helferinnen employed at the camps were legitimate SS members, resulting in inconsistent court verdicts. Several camps are alleged to have had relations between SS men and female guards, and Heinrich Himmler instructed the SS members to treat the female guards as equals and comrades. Wilhelm Dorr publicly sought a sexual connection with the top female overseer, Hertha Haas Breitmann Schmidt, at the comparatively modest Helmbretts subcamp near Hof, Germany. Another part of the female guard culture was corruption. Ilse Cook, dubbed the Witch of Buchenwald, was married to Karl Cook, the camp commandant. Both were accused of stealing millions of Reichsmarks, for which Karl Cook was convicted and killed by the Nazis only weeks before the U.S. Army liberated Buchenwald. Ilse, on the other hand, was absolved of the allegation. In 1951, she was convicted of war crimes and condemned to life in prison. Clara Koenig, a camp guard in 1944 who served at Rasenbruck and its subcamp in Dresden Universal, was an obvious exception to the cruel female supervisor paradigm. The camp's head wardress complained that she was too nice and friendly to the detainees, leading to her discharge from camp service in January of 1945. Her fate has remained unknown since the Allied firebombing of Dresden on February 13, 1945. Now, coming back to the topic, Ilse Irmgard Ida Grese was a Nazi concentration camp guard at Ravensbrück and Auschwitz, as well as the warden of the Bergen-Belsen Women's Division. She was a volunteer with the SS. Ilse Irmgard, Berta Grese, and Alfred Grese, both dairy employees, gave birth to Ida Grese on October 7, 1923. Irma was the third child in a family of 5. Upon the revelation that Alfred's romance with the daughter of a local bar owner, her mother committed herself to consume hydrochloric acid in 1936. According to historian Peter Vronsky, Alfred Grese joined the Nazi Party in 1937 and remarried in 1939. At Irma's trial, her sister Helene stated that when girls were quarreling and fighting, I never had the bravery to fight, but fled away. Grese dropped out of school at the age of 15 in 1938. She worked on a farm for 6 months, then in a store, then for 2 years in an SS-run hospital. Grese, like her sisters, wanted to join the League of German Girls, the Hitler Youth chapter for females, but her father prohibited her. She was transferred to the SS Female Helpers Training Base in Ravensbrück, the all-female concentration camp, before her 17th birthday. She became Officerin in Ravensbrück in 1940 and was moved to Auschwitz-Birkenau in March 1943. Grese fell out with her father the same year because of her transfer. He had adamantly opposed her entering the SS Gefolge. He kicked her out of his house. Grese was involved in the selection of prisoners for the Auschwitz gas chambers. Grese accompanied a prisoner evacuation train from Auschwitz to Ravensbrück in early 1945. In March, she traveled to Bergen-Belsen with many Ravensbrück detainees. The British Army apprehended Grese and other SS personnel who did not evacuate on April 17, 1945. Grese was one of 45 persons charged with war crimes during the Belsen trial in Nuremberg Lower Saxony. Major L. Cranfield represented her during the initial portion of the proceedings. The trials were held under British military law, with charges originating from the 1929 Geneva Convention on the treatment of captives. The allegations against her revolved around her mistreatment and murder of individuals imprisoned in the camps. Survivors presented extensive accounts of her atrocities, including claims that she whipped several women with a plated whip. Irma Grese testified about her background under direct examination. On October 7, 1923, I was born. In 1938, I dropped out of primary school and worked for 6 months on a farm doing agricultural work, followed by 6 months working in a shop in Laeken. When I was 15, I was admitted to a hospital in Hoeken and stayed for 2 years. I attempted to become a nurse, but the labor exchange refused and sent me to work at a dairy in Furstenberg. I sought to become a nurse again in July 1942, but the labor exchange sent me to Ravensbrück concentration camp despite my protests. I lived there until March 1943, when I was sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau camp. I was held in Auschwitz until January 1945. The press dubbed Grese the beautiful beast during the trial, with former SS Hauptanführer Joseph Kramer, the previous commander of Birkenau. Grese was convicted to death by hanging after a 9-week trial, even though several of the other female warders faced accusations as harsh as Grese's. She was one of only 3 female guards sentenced to death. Grese and 2 other concentration camp employees, Johanna Bormann and Elizabeth Volkenroth, were found guilty and condemned to death for crimes committed in Auschwitz and Belsen, along with 8 other men. Grese remained the sole prisoner who remained defiant when the convictions were read. Her following appeal was turned down. Grese, according to Wendy Adele Marie Sarti, performed Nazi songs with Johanna Bormann till the early morning hours of the night of her execution. Grese was brought to the gallows in Hamelin prison on December 13, 1945. The ladies were killed separately by long drop hanging, followed by the males in pairs. Richard Anthony O'Neill, a British Army regimental sergeant major, aided the executioner, Albert Pierrepoint. We ascended the steps to the cells where the condemned sat. We filed through rows of faces and entered the execution room. As a Nazi officer ripped open one door leading to the corridor, the cops remained standing. Brigadier Patton Walsh stepped up and lifted his wristwatch. I stepped into the corridor when he gave me the signal, and a sigh of relief could be heard in the chamber. Irma Grese, I said. The Nazi guards swiftly closed all 12 inspection hole grills and opened one door. Irma Grese came out. I couldn't enter the cell because it was too small, so I had to pin her in the passage. "Follow me," I replied in English, and O'Neill responded in German. She entered the execution room at 9:34 a.m., looked at the authorities, then moved to the center of the trap, where I had drawn a chalk mark. She stood strong on this mark, and I slipped the white cap over her head. She exclaimed, "Schnell," which means quickly in English. After the descent, the doctor followed me into the hole and pronounced her dead. After 20 minutes, the corpse was removed and placed in a casket in preparation for burial. Grese has appeared in a minor role in 2 films. Pierrepoint in 2005, which depicts her death during the Belsen War Crimes Tribunal, and Out of Ashes in 2008. In both films, more female guards play minor parts. Grese was briefly represented in Auschwitz, the Nazis, and the Final Solution in a non-speaking reenactment. In 1996, a narrative about Margot Peinzer, married name Kunz, a former Ostverheerin from Ravensbrück, the Belzig, and the Wittenberg subcamp, broke in Germany. A Soviet court condemned her to death, but it was reduced to life in prison, and she was freed in 1956. Peitzner was awarded the title Stalinist Martyr and 64,350 Deutschmarks, or 32,902 in euros, in the early 1990s at the age of 74. Several historians claim she lied and did not deserve the money. She had served time in German jail, controlled by the Soviets, yet she was imprisoned because she had served time in 3 concentration camps. The U.S. Justice Department deported 84-year-old San Francisco resident Elfriede Reinkel to Germany in 2006. Reinkel had worked at Ravensbrück from June 1944 to April 1945 and had employed an SS-trained dog in the camp. She had kept her secret from her family, friends, and Jewish-German husband, Fred, for 60 years. Reinkel emigrated to the United States in 1959, for a better life, but she left Ravensbrück off her list of addresses on her visa application. Thank you for stopping by to watch. Please subscribe to the channel and post your video recommendations in the comments area if you want us to do more films like this.